Admiral Zethkar had seen civilizations rise and fall across 3 galactic cycles. He had witnessed the birth of stars and the death of entire species. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for what humanity would leave behind after the galaxy showed them mercy. It started as a simple act of compassion. The Galactic Council, in their infinite wisdom, decided to spare the primitive humans from the cleansing protocols. Let them live, they said. What harm could such a young species possibly cause? They were about to find out. What the galaxy expected was gratitude, perhaps some primitive tribute, maybe even worship from these saved creatures. What they got instead would reshape the fundamental understanding of what it meant to be civilized, what it meant to be powerful, and what it meant to be human. The greatest military minds in the galaxy would study it for millennia. Philosophers would debate its implications. And every species that had ever shown cruelty to another would learn to fear the simple phrase that would echo across the stars. The humans remember. This is the story of mercy given, and the gift that followed, a gift so profound, so unexpected, that would make the galaxy question everything they thought they knew about the nature of civilization itself. The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched across dimensions that smaller species couldn't fully comprehend. Crystalline walls reflected the bioluminescent patterns of the Veltar representatives, while massive holographic displays showed the current state of the galaxy's newest problem, Earth. Admiral Zethkar of the Hegemony Navy stood before the assembled representatives of 47 different species, his 6 arms folded in the traditional posture of military reporting. His report had been clear, his recommendations explicit. The humans were a threat that needed to be eliminated before they could spread beyond their small blue world. The data is conclusive, Zethkar announced, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had overseen the cleansing of 17 civilizations. The human species displays every warning sign of becoming a Class A galactic threat. Their aggression levels exceed safe parameters by 300%. Their technological advancement curve suggests they will achieve faster-than-light capability within their next 50 solar cycles. Most concerning of all, they have never achieved planetary unification through diplomatic means. The chamber erupted in the multilingual chaos that always accompanied controversial decisions. The Veltar pulsed angry orange patterns across their translucent bodies, while the crystalline Archek rang like broken glass. The massive Tolvac delegates simply sat in silence, their mountain-sized forms betraying nothing of their thoughts. Councillor Mirthane of the Compassionate Coalition rose from her seat, her ethereal form shimmering as she prepared to speak. The chamber fell silent out of respect for one of the few remaining members of the galaxy's oldest diplomatic corps. "Honored Admiral," she began, her voice carrying harmonics that touched something deep in every species' consciousness. "Your report focuses solely on human capacity for violence. But our observations show they also possess remarkable capacity for cooperation, creativity, and what they call love. Should we not consider these factors before condemning an entire species?" Zitkar's mandibles clicked in frustration. "Counselor, with respect, every species that has threatened galactic stability has possessed admirable qualities. The Kaithmori created the most beautiful art in known history before they turned their creativity toward developing planet-killing weapons. The Shandur had the strongest family bonds ever recorded, which made them even more vicious when defending their territory. But the humans haven't attacked anyone beyond their own world," interrupted Junior Delegate Yextios of the Federated Worlds. His young enthusiasm was barely contained within his four-armed form. "They're still fighting among themselves. Perhaps if we offered them guidance, membership in the Council, absolutely not." Zethkar's response was immediate and sharp. "Counselor, you were not present during the Kaithmori expansion. I was. I watched them turn from artists into the most efficient killers the galaxy had ever seen, and it happened in less than 10 of their generation cycles. The humans are already more violent than the Kaithmori ever were, even in their artistic phase." The debate continued for hours, as it always did when the council faced difficult decisions. Representatives shared historical precedents, philosophical arguments, and predictive models. But Zethkar had seen this pattern before. The younger species, those who hadn't witnessed the horror of unchecked expansion, always argued for mercy. The older species, those who remembered, supported elimination. Finally, Prime Coordinator Volthes called for order. The ancient being's form was so old and evolved that most species could only perceive her as a shifting pattern of lights and sounds. When she spoke, reality itself seemed to bend around her words. "The Council has heard all arguments," she announced. "We will now vote on Admiral Zethkar's recommendation for immediate species termination of the human civilization." The voting process was conducted through quantum-linked consciousness, ensuring both privacy and absolute accuracy. Zethkar watched the tally appear on the central display, already knowing what it would show. The galaxy had grown soft during the long peace. They would choose mercy, and in a few centuries, they would pay the price for that choice. The final count appeared: 47 representatives, 24 votes for termination, 23 votes for mercy. By a single vote, humanity would live. Councillor Mir Thane's form brightened with relief, while Zethkar felt his secondary stomachs clench with foreboding. He had been in this position twice before, watching the Council choose compassion over security. Both times, the results have been catastrophic. "The decision is made," Prime Coordinator Volthes announced. "The human species will be spared. However, they will be subject to continuous monitoring and will be restricted to their home system until they demonstrate the capacity for peaceful coexistence." As the Council began to disperse, Zethkar approached Councillor Mir Thane. Her species had evolved beyond physical form millennia ago, communicating through direct emotional transfer, but she maintained a humanoid appearance out of courtesy to younger species. "Counselor," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of experience, "I hope you understand what you've done here today." Her reply carried undertones of sadness and hope intertwined. "I understand that we've chosen to trust in the possibility of growth rather than surrender to the certainty of fear, Admiral. Sometimes that's all we can do." "I've made that choice twice before," Zethkar replied. "Both times, billions died as a result. I hope the humans prove more worthy of your trust than the Kaithmori or the Chandar." As he prepared to leave, Mir Thane's emotional emanations stopped him. "Admiral, may I ask why you believe the humans are different from us?" Zethkar turned back, his ancient eyes meeting her ethereal form. "It's not that they're different, Counselor. It's that they're exactly like us. Every species in this council achieved unity through conquest, diplomacy, or evolutionary pressure. We learned to control our violent impulses because we had to, because the alternative was extinction. The humans haven't faced that choice yet. They haven't had to choose between growth and destruction. And you believe they'll choose destruction?" "I believe they'll choose both," Zethkar said quietly. "And that's what makes them dangerous." The monitoring station was established within the month, a joint operation between the Hegemony Navy and the Scientific Consortium. Hidden beyond the edge of Earth's solar system, it would track every transmission, every technological advancement, every social development of human civilization. Lieutenant Commander Wythara was assigned as the primary observer, a role that typically lasted for several decades before rotation. She had studied human culture extensively during her preparation, learning their languages, their history, their artistic expressions. What she found was a species of contradictions that defied easy classification. They created beautiful music while simultaneously developing more efficient ways to kill each other. They wrote poetry about love and peace while building weapons of mass destruction. They showed incredible compassion to individuals while systematically oppressing entire groups. They were, as Admiral Zethkar had noted, exactly like every other species in the galaxy, only more so. The first decade of observation was routine. Humans continued their local conflicts, made incremental technological advances, and showed no signs of achieving faster-than-light travel. YXTRA's reports were filed with the Council and largely ignored. The galaxy had moved on to other concerns. It was during the 13th year of observation that everything changed. YXTRA was monitoring routine communication satellites when she detected an unusual energy signature from the planet's surface. The readings were subtle, easily mistaken for atmospheric interference, but her instruments were the most sophisticated in the galaxy. She had found something that wasn't supposed to exist. The humans had achieved controlled nuclear fusion, not the primitive, wasteful fusion that most species developed during their industrial phase, but clean, efficient fusion that approached theoretical maximum efficiency. More concerning was how they had achieved it. Not through gradual technological advancement, but through a revolutionary breakthrough that shouldn't have been possible for a species at their development level. YXTRA immediately transmitted her findings to the Council, flagging them as urgent. Within hours, she received a response that chilled her to the bone. Admiral Zethkar himself was coming to the monitoring station. When his ship arrived, YXTRA was surprised to see that he had brought with him a full scientific team and additional monitoring equipment. The elderly admiral moved through the station with the efficiency of someone who had done this before. "Show me everything," he commanded without preamble. YXTRA brought up the energy readings, the communication intercepts, and her analysis of the technological leap. Zethkar studied the data in silence, his expression growing grimmer with each passing moment. "How long until they achieve faster-than-light travel?" he asked finally. "At their previous rate of advancement, I would have estimated another 40 years, YXTRA replied. "But this breakthrough changes everything. If they apply the same principles to propulsion research." 5 years, Zethkar finished. Maybe less. The implications hung in the air between them. The Council's decision had been based on the assumption that humanity would remain confined to their solar system for at least another century. That timeline had just collapsed. "Admiral," YXTRA said carefully, "there's something else. The breakthrough didn't come from their military or their governments. It came from their educational institutions, from collaboration between researchers who freely shared their findings with the entire species." Zitkar's mandibles clicked in surprise. They shared weapons-grade technology freely. They don't see it as weapons technology. To them, it's clean energy, a solution to their environmental problems. They're already planning to use it to power their cities, their vehicles, their spacecraft. They've posted the entire technical specifications on their global information network, available to anyone. For the first time in decades, Admiral Zethkar felt something approaching wonder. In his experience, species that achieved advanced technology immediately weaponized it and restricted access to maintain advantage over their rivals. The idea of freely sharing such capability was almost incomprehensible. "Begin Phase 2 monitoring," he ordered. "I want to know everything about their research methodology, their information sharing protocols, and their decision-making processes. If they're going to achieve faster-than-light capability ahead of schedule, the Council needs to understand exactly what kind of species we're dealing with." As his team began setting up the enhanced monitoring equipment, Zethkar found himself reconsidering his long-held assumptions about human nature. Perhaps Councillor Mirathane had been right about their capacity for cooperation. But, in his experience, cooperation could be just as dangerous as aggression when wielded by a species with unlimited potential. The question was no longer whether humanity would expand beyond their solar system. The question was what they would do when they got there. And, based on their willingness to freely share fusion technology, Zethkar was beginning to suspect that the galaxy was about to encounter something unprecedented, a species that might actually deserve the mercy they had been given. The breakthrough came exactly 4 years and 7 months after humanity achieved controlled fusion. YXTRA was monitoring deep space communication arrays when every instrument on the observation station simultaneously detected the impossible, a massive distortion in space-time emanating from Earth's solar system. "Admiral," she called out, her voice cutting through the usual hum of the monitoring station. "You need to see this immediately." Zethkar abandoned his review of cultural analysis reports and moved swiftly to the main sensor array. The readings that greeted him defied everything he knew about technological development. The humans had not only achieved faster-than-light travel, they had created something that made the galaxy's best propulsion systems look primitive. "What exactly am I looking at?" he asked, though part of him already knew the answer. "A stable wormhole, Admiral. Artificially created, perfectly controlled, and..." Waxtera paused, double-checking her readings. "It's completely stable. No energy decay, no dimensional stress fractures, no reality distortion. It's like they found a way to fold space without actually damaging it." Zethkar felt his secondary hearts begin to race. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations have been working on stable wormhole technology for millions of years. The theoretical framework existed, but the practical application required computational power and energy control beyond the capability of even the most developed worlds. Yet somehow, a species that hadn't even achieved interplanetary colonization had solved the problem. "Where does it lead?" he asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Proxima Centauri. They're sending unmanned probes through first, but the communication lag suggests successful transit. Admiral, they've just reduced interstellar travel time from centuries to minutes." The implications were staggering. With stable wormhole technology, humans could expand throughout the galaxy faster than any species in recorded history. More concerning was what this suggested about their intellectual capacity. The mathematical and engineering challenges involved in creating stable wormholes were so complex that most civilizations required thousands of years of collaborative development to even approach a solution. "Summon an emergency council session," Zethkar ordered, "and prepare a full technical analysis. The council needs to understand exactly what we're facing." The emergency session convened within hours, the first such gathering in over a century. Representatives from across the galaxy appeared as holographic projections in the Great Chamber, their various forms betraying different levels of concern and curiosity. Prime Coordinator Valthes materialized in the center of the chamber, her ancient presence commanding immediate attention. "Admiral Zethkar, present your findings." Zethkar activated the holographic display, showing the technical specifications of humanity's wormhole generator. The chamber fell silent as the assembled representatives absorbed the implications of what they were seeing. "The humans have achieved stable wormhole technology," he announced. "Not a prototype, not a limited demonstration, but a fully functional system capable of creating permanent transit points between star systems. Our analysis suggests they can establish wormhole networks covering thousands of light years." Councillor Mirthane's form flickered with surprise. "How is this possible? Our greatest scientific minds have worked on this problem for millennia without success." "That's the most disturbing part," Zethkar replied. "They solved it through collaborative research involving their entire species. They created a global network where any individual could contribute to the research. Millions of their scientists, engineers, and mathematicians work together, sharing every discovery and breakthrough freely." The Archek representative resonated with harmonics of disbelief. "A species-wide intellectual collaboration? That's theoretically impossible. Information coordination across billions of individuals should create chaos, not breakthroughs." "Yet somehow they made it work," Zethkar continued. "They developed new communication protocols, collaborative algorithms, and knowledge-sharing systems that allowed them to function as a single, vast intelligence while maintaining individual creativity and initiative." Junior Delegate Yextos leaned forward eagerly. "This is exactly what we hoped for. They've achieved unprecedented cooperation and technological advancement. Surely this proves they deserve council membership." Admiral Zethkar's mandibles clicked in warning. "Delegate, you're missing the larger picture. A species that can solve impossible problems through collective intelligence while maintaining individual innovation represents a threat we've never encountered before. They don't just have advanced technology, They have an advanced method of creating technology. The debate that followed was unlike any in council history. Representatives argued not about humanity's current capabilities, but about their potential for future development. Some saw the collaboration as proof of humanity's peaceful intentions, while others recognized it as a capability that could easily be turned toward military applications. The discussion was interrupted by an urgent transmission from the monitoring station. Yxthara's image appeared in the chamber, her expression tense with urgency. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the human homeworld. It appears to be directed at us, specifically." The chamber erupted in confusion. The monitoring station was hidden beyond the edge of the solar system, using stealth technology that should have made it invisible to human sensors. "How could they possibly know about the station?" demanded Counselor Mirthane. "Play the transmission," Zethkar ordered, though his gut told him he wouldn't like what he heard. A human face appeared in the holographic display, belonging to a middle-aged woman with graying hair and intelligent eyes. When she spoke, her words were delivered in perfect galactic standard, the universal language known only to Council species. "Greetings to the observers from the Galactic Council. My name is Dr. Elena Vasquez, and I represent the United Earth Science Consortium. We know you've been watching us for the past 17 years, and we want you to know that we appreciate the care you've taken to remain unobtrusive." The council chamber fell completely silent. Several representatives flickered with shock, while others began rapid communications with their homeworlds. Dr. Vasquez continued, "We detected your observation post shortly after we achieved controlled fusion. We've been monitoring your monitoring, so to speak. We know about the Council's decision to spare our species, and we know that our recent technological breakthroughs have caused some concern." She paused, seeming to look directly at each council member in turn. "We want to thank you for the mercy you showed us. The vote was close, 24-23, we believe, and we understand the risk you took in allowing us to survive and develop." Zethkar felt his worldview shifting. Not only had the humans detected the supposedly undetectable monitoring station, they had somehow learned about the Council's classified deliberations. The security implications were staggering. "We know that our rapid technological advancement must seem threatening," Dr. Vasquez continued. "A species that can solve complex problems through massive collaboration and free information sharing probably doesn't fit your normal patterns of development. But we want to assure you that we have no hostile intentions." She activated her own holographic display, showing technical specifications that made several council members gasp with recognition. "We've developed these technologies not for conquest or expansion, but because we believe knowledge should be freely shared. The fusion reactor designs we've created are available to any species that wants them. The wormhole technology we've developed can connect distant civilizations, reducing travel time and enabling greater cooperation." Junior Delegate Yextos whispered, "They're offering to share their most advanced technology? We understand that you probably have protocols for dealing with emerging species," Dr. Vasquez said. "Quarantine procedures, monitoring requirements, technological restrictions. We're willing to work within whatever framework you believe is appropriate. But we'd like to make a proposal." The holographic display changed, showing a complex schematic that took Zethkar several moments to understand. When he did, he felt his blood chill. "We propose to establish a permanent wormhole link between Earth and the Council homeworld," Dr. Vasquez announced. "Not for invasion or expansion, but for communication and cultural exchange. We want to learn from you to understand how civilizations can coexist peacefully across the galaxy." The audacity of the proposal was breathtaking. Humans were offering to create a direct connection between their world and the seat of galactic government, voluntarily placing themselves within reach of the Council's most powerful military forces. "As a gesture of good faith," Dr. Vasquez continued, "we're transmitting the complete technical specifications for our wormhole generators, our fusion reactors, and our collaborative research protocols. Everything we developed is being shared freely with the Council and all member species." The transmission ended. leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. For the first time in galactic history, an emerging species had voluntarily shared their most advanced technologies with the established powers, asking for nothing in return except the opportunity for peaceful contact. Prime Coordinator Valthes finally spoke, her ancient voice carrying undertones of wonder. Admiral Zethkar, in your professional opinion, is this an elaborate deception? Zethkar studied the technical specifications scrolling across his display. The mathematics were correct, the engineering was sound, and the energy requirements matched their observed capabilities. More importantly, the level of detail provided would be impossible to fake. No, Prime Coordinator, this appears to be genuine. They're actually giving us their most advanced technology. Counselor Mirthane's form pulsed with emotions too complex for most species to understand. They're doing exactly what we always hoped an advanced species would do. They're choosing cooperation over conquest, knowledge sharing over knowledge hoarding. But why? Asked the Tolvac representative, speaking for the first time in decades. What do they gain by making themselves vulnerable? The answer came from an unexpected source. Junior Delegate Yextis, whose young idealism suddenly seemed less naive and more prophetic. They gain what they've always valued most, he said quietly. They gain the chance to learn, to grow, to become part of something larger than themselves. They're not trying to conquer the galaxy. They're trying to join it. As the Council began the complex process of evaluating humanity's proposal, Admiral Zethkar found himself reconsidering everything he thought he knew about emerging civilizations. In his centuries of experience, he had never encountered a species that voluntarily made themselves vulnerable in order to build trust. Perhaps, he thought, the humans were about to teach the galaxy something new about the nature of true strength. The wormhole terminus materialized in space exactly where Dr. Vasquez had promised, one astronomical unit from the Council homeworld of Nexus Prime. The engineering precision was flawless. The artificial gateway hung in the void like a perfect circle of controlled space-time, its edges shimmering with energies that bent light itself. Admiral Zethkar watched from the bridge of his flagship as the first human vessel emerged from the impossible tunnel between worlds. The ship was unlike anything in the Council's databases, sleek where most vessels were utilitarian, elegant where others were purely functional. But what struck him most was its size. For a species capable of creating stable wormholes, they had chosen to build a ship barely larger than a diplomatic courier. Incoming transmission from the human vessel, reported Communications Officer Velton. They're requesting permission to approach Nexus Prime. Grant them clearance, Zethkar replied, and maintained full escort protocols. I want to know everything about their capabilities. The human ship followed the prescribed approach vector with perfect precision, never deviating from the flight plan or making any moves that could be interpreted as aggressive. As it drew closer, Zethkar's tactical analysis revealed something that made him question his own instruments. Sir, Velton said quietly, the human ship appears to be completely unarmed. Zethkar's mandibles clicked in disbelief. Confirm that reading. Confirmed, Admiral. No weapons signatures, no defensive countermeasures, no shielding beyond basic meteorite protection. It's essentially a civilian transport. For a species that had just demonstrated revolutionary technological capabilities, sending an unarmed vessel to first contact was either incredibly naive or profoundly confident. Zethkar suspected it was neither. It was strategic. They were making a statement about their intentions that no amount of diplomatic rhetoric could match. The docking procedure at Nexus Prime's diplomatic station proceeded flawlessly. The human ship interfaced perfectly with Council standard docking protocols, despite the fact that their technology was completely different from galactic norms. Another demonstration of their remarkable adaptability. Dr. Elena Vasquez was the first human to step onto a Council station. She was accompanied by a small delegation of scientists, diplomats, and cultural specialists, exactly 12 individuals, the traditional number for diplomatic exchanges in galactic protocol. They had done their homework. Zethkar met them at the airlock, curious to observe humanity's first representative up close. Dr. Vasquez was smaller than he had expected, but her presence filled the corridor in a way that had nothing to do with physical size. When she spoke, her voice carried confidence without arrogance. "Admiral Zethkar, thank you for arranging our safe passage. We're honored to be here. Dr. Vasquez, welcome to Nexus Prime. I confess, your species continues to surprise us." She smiled, a facial expression that most galactic species found disturbing, but that somehow seemed appropriate on human features. "We specialize in surprises, Admiral, though we prefer the pleasant kind." The formal reception in the council chambers was unprecedented. No emerging species had ever been invited to address the full assembly without first undergoing decades of probationary membership. But humanity's voluntary sharing of advanced technology had earned them a level of trust normally reserved for established civilizations. Prime Coordinator Valthes manifested in her most formal configuration, a shimmering pattern of lights and harmonics that conveyed the full weight of galactic authority. When she spoke, her words resonated in dimensions beyond normal hearing. "Dr. Vasquez, you speak for a species that has chosen an unusual path. Your willingness to share technology freely and your request for communication rather than territory represents something new in our experience. Help us understand your motivations." Dr. Vasquez stepped forward, her small human form dwarfed by the assembled representatives of 47 different species. But when she spoke, her words carried a weight that transcended physical presence. "Prime Coordinator, honored representatives, we come to you because we believe that intelligence is most powerful when it's shared. Every breakthrough our species has made came from building on the work of others, from combining different perspectives and approaches to solve complex problems." She activated a small device that projected holographic displays visible to all species regardless of their sensory configurations. "We've learned that isolation makes civilizations weak, while cooperation makes them strong. We don't want to repeat the mistakes we made on our own world. The wars fought over resources, the technologies developed in secret, the knowledge hoarded by those in power." The display showed images from human history, conflicts, scientific breakthroughs, artistic achievements, social progress. But unlike most species' historical presentations, these images focused not on conquest and dominance, but on collaboration and shared achievement. "We know you've been watching us," Dr. Vasquez continued. "You've seen our capacity for violence, our tendency toward conflict. But you've also seen us choose cooperation over competition when we understand the benefits. The fusion breakthrough came from thousands of scientists working together. The wormhole technology emerged from a global collaboration involving millions of individuals." Counselor Mirthane's form brightened with interest. "Dr. Vasquez, how do you resolve conflicts between individual ambition and collective benefit?" "We don't eliminate individual ambition," Dr. Vasquez replied. "We channel it toward collective goals. When everyone benefits from breakthrough discoveries, individuals are motivated to contribute their best work. When knowledge is freely shared, everyone can build on everyone else's achievements." The Archek representative resonated with crystalline harmonics of confusion. "But how do you maintain competitive advantage? How do you ensure your species' survival if you give away your technological superiority?" Dr. Vasquez paused, considering her answer carefully. "Representative, we've learned that true security doesn't come from having better weapons than your neighbors. It comes from making sure your neighbors don't need to fight you. When everyone has access to fusion technology, no one fights wars over energy resources. When everyone can travel between stars efficiently, territorial expansion becomes unnecessary." Admiral Zethkar found himself leaning forward despite his skepticism. "Dr. Vasquez, what happens when you encounter species that don't share your philosophy? Species that view your openness as weakness to be exploited?" Her response surprised him. "Then, we help them understand why cooperation is stronger than exploitation, Admiral. Not through force or coercion, but by demonstrating the benefits. Every species that joins the collaborative network becomes more powerful than they ever were alone. Junior Delegate Yextios practically vibrated with enthusiasm. Are you proposing to extend this collaboration to the entire galaxy? If the Council is willing, Dr. Vasquez replied. We'd like to establish research stations throughout Council space, staffed by volunteers from every member species. Shared laboratories where different forms of intelligence can work together on problems that affect everyone. Disease, resource depletion, environmental restoration, technological advancement. The audacity of the proposal sent ripples of discussion throughout the chamber. Humanity was offering to create a galaxy-wide network of collaborative research, sharing not just their own technology, but providing facilities for other species to advance together. Prime Coordinator Valthes manifested in a configuration that conveyed deep consideration. Dr. Vasquez, such an arrangement would require unprecedented levels of trust. How do we know your species won't use these collaborative facilities to gather intelligence or develop superior technologies in secret? Dr. Vasquez smiled again, and this time several council members found the expression less disturbing and more reassuring. Because everything that happens in these facilities will be completely transparent. All research data, all experimental results, all technological developments will be immediately shared with every participant. No secrets, no proprietary information, no competitive advantages. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity was proposing to create a galactic civilization where technological advancement happened through open collaboration rather than competitive secrecy. Furthermore, Dr. Vasquez continued, we're prepared to demonstrate our commitment to this philosophy. We're offering to place human settlements throughout Council space, not as colonies or expansion points, but as permanent communities integrated with local populations. Humans living alongside other species, sharing their knowledge and learning from their hosts. Zethkar felt his worldview shifting again. In his experience, species expansion was always about dominance or resource acquisition. The idea of voluntary integration for purely collaborative purposes was almost incomprehensible. What do you want in return? Asked the Tolvac representative, his massive form rumbling with suspicion. Knowledge, Dr. Vasquez replied simply. We want to learn everything we can about how different forms of intelligence solve problems. We want to understand how crystalline minds process information, how energy beings manipulate matter, how collective consciousnesses make decisions. We believe that by combining all these different approaches, we can solve problems that no single species could tackle alone. The debate that followed lasted for days. Representatives consulted with their home governments, analyzed the implications, and argued about the risks and benefits. But gradually, a consensus began to emerge. Councillor Mirthane spoke for many when she addressed the assembly on the final day of deliberation. In my lifetime, I have seen civilizations rise and fall based on their willingness to adapt and cooperate. The humans are offering us something unprecedented, a chance to evolve beyond the competitive models that have defined galactic civilization for millions of years. But the risks, protested the Veltar representative, his bioluminescent patterns flickering with anxiety. If their collaborative model fails, if competition reasserts itself, we could face a species with access to all our technological capabilities. True, admitted Admiral Zethkar, surprising many with his change of position. But the alternative is to remain locked in the current paradigm. Species developing in isolation, sharing only minimal technology, always prepared for conflict. The humans are offering us a chance to become something better. When a final vote was called, the result was unanimous for the first time in Council history. Humanity would be granted full membership and permission to establish their collaborative research network throughout galactic space. As Dr. Vasquez prepared to return to Earth with the news, she approached Admiral Zethkar privately. Admiral, I know you had reservations about our species. I want you to know that we understand the risk the Council is taking. Dr. Vasquez, Zethkar replied, I've spent my career preparing for threats to galactic stability. Your species represents something I never anticipated, a threat to galactic stagnation. You're challenging us to become better than we are. That's all we've ever wanted, Admiral. The chance to grow and to help others grow with us. As the human ship departed through their remarkable wormhole, Zethkar found himself contemplating a future he had never imagined possible. A galaxy where competition gave way to collaboration, where knowledge was shared rather than hoarded, where different forms of intelligence worked together to solve the great challenges facing all civilizations. The humans had been granted mercy by the narrowest of margins. What they had given in return was the possibility of a better galaxy for everyone. 5 years after humanity's admission to the Galactic Council, Admiral Zethkar stood in what had once been his private command center and marveled at how completely everything had changed. The sterile military facility had been transformed into a bustling collaborative research station, filled with beings from 17 different species working side by side on projects that would have been unimaginable just a few years earlier. He watched a team of Archek crystalline engineers working with human programmers to develop new computational architectures, their radically different forms of intelligence, creating solutions neither species could have achieved alone. Nearby, Veltar luminescent specialists were collaborating with human biochemists to design medical treatments that could adapt to any species' physiology. The very air hummed with intellectual energy and cooperative excitement. Remarkable, isn't it? Dr. Vasquez had approached without him noticing, a habit she developed that still unnerved him despite years of working together. I confess, Dr. Vasquez, when your species proposed this collaborative model, I expected it to collapse within months. Competition and territorial instincts have driven galactic civilization for millions of years. She smiled, that human expression he'd grown to associate with genuine warmth rather than threat display. We had the same concerns, Admiral. Competition is part of our nature too. But we've learned that the key isn't eliminating competition. It's redirecting it towards shared goals. As if to demonstrate her point, an alarm chimed softly throughout the station. Not an emergency alert, but the notification sound that meant another breakthrough had been achieved. Beings throughout the facility paused their current work to access the shared information network, reviewing the latest discovery and considering how it might enhance their own projects. The consciousness transfer protocol has achieved successful testing, announced Dr. Chenwei, the human coordinator for the Cognitive Science Division. The HFY hive mind has successfully shared individual awareness with volunteer subjects from 6 different species without permanent psychological integration. The implications were staggering. The HFY had possessed collective consciousness for millions of years, but it had been limited to their own species. Now, working with human consciousness researchers and volunteers from across the galaxy, they had developed a way to temporarily share thoughts and experiences between completely different forms of intelligence. Admiral Zethkar felt a familiar chill of concern. Dr. Vasquez, are you certain about the safety protocols for consciousness transfer? The military applications alone are being shared with everyone simultaneously, she interrupted gently. Admiral, that's the beauty of the open collaboration model. No one can develop secret weapons because everything is transparent. But more importantly, when everyone has access to the same capabilities, the strategic value of those capabilities changes completely. She led him to an observation deck overlooking the main research floor, where hundreds of beings worked in harmony that would have seemed impossible just years earlier. Look at them, Admiral. 5 years ago, most of these species barely trusted each other enough for trade agreements. Now they're sharing their deepest scientific knowledge and working together on projects that benefit everyone. Zethkar had to admit the evidence was compelling. The collaborative research network had produced more technological breakthroughs in 5 years than the galaxy had seen in the previous century. Disease had been virtually eliminated through universal medical protocols. Energy scarcity was becoming a historical curiosity as fusion and Other clean technologies spread throughout Council space. Even faster-than-light travel had been revolutionized through improvements to the wormhole networks. But it was the social changes that impressed him most. Species that had maintained cold diplomatic relations for millennia were now sending their youth to study together in mixed-species universities. Cultural exchange programs had created hybrid art forms and philosophical movements that transcended traditional species boundaries. Most remarkably, territorial disputes had virtually disappeared as the collaborative model made expansion unnecessary. The results speak for themselves, Zethkar admitted. But I remain concerned about external threats. What happens when this collaborative paradise encounters species that aren't interested in cooperation? Dr. Vasquez's expression grew more serious. Actually, Admiral, we're about to find out. Long-range sensors have detected signs of an approaching fleet. Ships using technology we don't recognize, heading directly for Council space. The briefing room filled quickly with representatives from across the collaborative network. Unlike the formal Council chambers of the past, this was a working space where beings could gather regardless of their physical requirements. Holographic displays showed sensor data, while translation protocols ensured everyone could participate in the discussion. The approaching fleet was massive, over 300 vessels of unknown configuration, traveling at velocities that suggested advanced propulsion technology. More concerning was their trajectory, which would bring them into contact with the outermost collaborative research stations within weeks. Initial analysis suggests a technological level comparable to our own, reported Commander Yilseth of the Sensor Array Division. However, their ship configurations are purely military. No civilian vessels, no research platforms, no indication of peaceful intentions. Junior Delegate Yextos, now a senior representative after years of successful diplomatic work, voiced the question everyone was considering. Have we attempted communication? Multiple attempts across all known frequency ranges and communication protocols, replied Dr. Ahmad Hassan, the human specialist in xenocommunication. No response to any of our overtures. They appear to be maintaining communication silence. Admiral Zethkar studied the tactical displays with experienced eyes. The approaching fleet's formation and approach vectors suggested a military force prepared for conquest rather than exploration. After years of peaceful collaboration, the galaxy was about to face its first major external threat since the network's establishment. What are our defensive capabilities? He asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. That's complicated, Dr. Vasquez replied. The Collaborative Research Network has developed incredibly advanced technologies, but we've focused entirely on peaceful applications. We have defensive systems, but they're designed to protect against accidents and natural disasters, not military assault. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. By eliminating the competitive secrecy that had driven weapons development for millennia, the collaborative network had also eliminated its ability to quickly develop military responses to external threats. However, continued Dr. Vasquez, we do have capabilities that no purely military civilization could match. Our consciousness transfer protocols, our matter manipulation technologies, our understanding of space-time engineering. These weren't developed as weapons, but they could be adapted if necessary. The question, interjected Counselor Mirthane, participating via quantum communication from the diplomatic station, is whether we want to abandon our collaborative principles in the face of threat. If we respond with violence, we risk becoming the very thing we've worked to move beyond. The debate that followed was unlike any in galactic history. Instead of arguing about military strategies and territorial defense, the assembled beings discussed philosophical principles and moral obligations. They considered not just how to protect themselves, but how to remain true to the values that had created their remarkable civilization. It was Dr. Sarah Chun, a human xenopsychologist, who proposed a solution that would define the galaxy's response. What if we don't fight them? She suggested. What if we invite them to join us? The suggestion was met with stunned silence, followed by an explosion of discussion. The approaching fleet was clearly hostile, equipped for conquest, and had ignored all attempts at peaceful communication. Inviting them to join the collaborative network seemed like offering surrender. Hear me out, Dr. Chun continued. Every civilization develops military capability for the same reasons: resource competition, territorial expansion, protection from threats. But what if we can eliminate those motivations? What if we can offer them something better than conquest? Admiral Zethkar's tactical mind immediately identified the flaws in such an approach. Dr. Chun, you're assuming they're rational actors who will respond to incentives. Military civilizations often develop cultural values that glorify conquest for its own sake. Then, we show them something better, replied Dr. Chun. We demonstrate what civilization can become when cooperation replaces competition. We open our research stations to them, share technologies, invite them to participate in projects that will benefit their people. And if they choose conquest over cooperation, ask the Tolvac representative. Then, we defend ourselves, Dr. Vasquez said firmly. But we defend ourselves in a way that's consistent with our values. We protect our people and our way of life without abandoning the principles that made them worth protecting. The solution that emerged from the discussions was audacious in its simplicity. Instead of meeting the approaching fleet with military force, the collaborative network would send a single ship, unarmed, staffed by volunteers from multiple species, carrying a complete database of their technologies and achievements. Admiral Zethkar found himself volunteering for the mission despite every instinct screaming that it was suicidal. When Dr. Vasquez asked why, his answer surprised even himself. Because in my centuries of military service, I've seen what happens when civilizations meet with violence as their first response. I've participated in conflicts that lasted for millennia, fought over resources and territory that could have been shared. This collaborative network has given us a chance to be better than that. The volunteer crew assembled on the research station's main deck before departure. Humans worked alongside Archek, Veltar, and beings from a dozen other species, all committed to demonstrating that cooperation was stronger than conquest. They were scientists and artists, engineers and philosophers, carrying with them not weapons, but knowledge. As their ship approached the unknown fleet, long-range sensors detected hundreds of weapons platforms activating. The approaching civilization was prepared for battle, expecting to encounter resistance, and ready to overwhelm any defensive force. What they found instead was a single small vessel broadcasting a simple message on all frequencies. Welcome to our galaxy. We're here to learn from you and to share what we've learned ourselves. The response came immediately: weapons locks, targeting systems, demand for immediate surrender. The unknown fleet clearly expected capitulation from what appeared to be a helplessly outgunned diplomatic vessel. Instead, they received something unprecedented in their military experience: an invitation to visit the collaborative research stations, to see what their civilization had achieved, to participate in projects that could benefit everyone. "This is Admiral Korthax of the Dominion Fleet," came the reply, transmitted in harsh tones that suggested vocal cords evolved for intimidation. "You will surrender your territories and submit to Dominion authority. Resistance will result in total annihilation." Dr. Vasquez responded personally, her calm voice a stark contrast to the aggressive demands. "Admiral Korthax, we're not surrendering because we're not at war with you. We're inviting you to join something better than conquest. Would you be willing to send a small delegation to see what we've built here?" The silence that followed stretched for long minutes. "Then, you're offering to show us your defenses? Your military capabilities?" "We're offering to show you our achievements, Admiral. Technologies that have eliminated scarcity, methods of cooperation that have made territorial expansion unnecessary, forms of intelligence enhancement that have solved problems we never imagined possible." Another long pause. "And in exchange?" "Nothing, Admiral. Everything we've developed is freely shared with anyone willing to participate in the collaborative network. No territorial concessiones. No tributa, no submisión. Just the opportunity to be part of something that benefits everyone." What happened next will be studied by xenopsychologists for centuries. Admiral Korthax, commander of a fleet designed for conquest, made a decision that went against everything his military culture had taught him. He agreed to send a delegation. 10 years had passed since the Dominion delegation first set foot on the collaborative research stations. Admiral Zethkar stood now in the transformed command center, watching beings from over 100 different species working together on projects that spanned the galaxy. Among them were the Dominion engineers, their warrior culture slowly evolving into something new as they discovered the satisfactions of creation over destruction. Admiral Korthax himself had become one of the most effective advocates for the collaborative model, his military experience proving invaluable in organizing large-scale projects and coordinating resources across vast distances. The transformation from conqueror to collaborator had taken 3 years of patient demonstration and gradual understanding, but it had been complete. Status report on the galactic restoration projects? Zethkar asked Dr. Vasquez, who despite her advancing years remained the driving force behind humanity's contribution to the network. Better than we ever dared hope, she replied, calling up holographic displays that showed the current state of collaborative activities. The Dead Worlds Restoration Initiative has successfully revived 17 formerly lifeless planets using combined terraforming technologies. The disease eradication program has eliminated suffering from biological illness in over 400 species. And the Consciousness Enhancement Project has allowed beings to share knowledge and experience in ways that were unimaginable just decades ago. The scope of achievement was staggering. What had begun as humanity's simple proposal to share fusion technology had evolved into a galactic civilization where cooperation had replaced competition as the primary driver of progress. But it was the personal transformations that impressed Zethkar most. He remembered his own journey from suspicious military commander to enthusiastic collaborator. The process hadn't been easy. Letting go of competitive instincts and territorial thinking had required years of conscious effort. But the rewards had been worth every moment of discomfort. Dr. Vasquez, he said, I've been thinking about something. When your species first addressed the council, you spoke of gratitude for the mercy we had shown you. I'm beginning to think we had it backward. She turned to him with that human expression of gentle curiosity. What do you mean, Admiral? I mean that we didn't show you mercy. We made a choice that benefited us far more than it benefited you. By allowing humanity to survive and develop, we gained access to ways of thinking and being that have transformed everything we thought we knew about civilization. Dr. Vasquez was quiet for a moment, considering his words. I think you're being too modest, Admiral. The Council made a difficult decision based on limited information. You chose trust over fear, cooperation over elimination. That took real wisdom. But that's exactly my point, Zethkar insisted. We thought we were taking a risk on your species. What we actually did was take a risk on ourselves, on our ability to become better than we had been. And humanity didn't just validate that risk, you showed us how to transcend it entirely. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the outer sensor arrays. Dr. Chan Wei appeared on the holographic display, her expression mixing excitement with concern. We're detecting multiple space-time distortions at the galaxy's edge, she reported. Massive ones. It appears that another galaxy is attempting to establish contact with ours. The implications were staggering. Intergalactic communication had been theoretical until now, requiring energy expenditures and technological capabilities beyond any single species. But the collaborative network had developed technologies that could theoretically make such contact possible. Are we receiving any communication attempts? Asked Dr. Vasquez. That's the interesting part, Dr. Chen replied. They're not trying to communicate with us. They're trying to communicate with Earth specifically. The signal is directed at humanity's homeworld using protocols that suggest they've been monitoring our broadcasts for some time. Admiral Zethkar felt a familiar chill of concern, but this time it was tempered by years of experience with the unexpected benefits of contact with other civilizations. Dr. Vasquez, what do you think they want? I suspect, she said slowly, that they want what everyone wants when they first encounter the collaborative model. They want to understand how it works, whether it's sustainable, and whether it's something they can adapt to their own circumstances. The intergalactic communication, when it finally arrived, confirmed her suspicions. The message came from what called itself the Confederation of Aligned Galaxies, a loose association of civilizations that had been struggling with the same competitive conflicts that had once plagued their own galaxy. Beings of the Milky Way, the message began, transmitted in mathematical concepts that transcended language barriers. We have observed the remarkable transformation of your galactic civilization. Our own confederation has been locked in cycles of competition and conflict for millions of years. We seek to understand how you achieve the cooperation we see in your broadcasts. The request was for a cultural exchange program, not trade or territorial negotiation, but the opportunity to learn from each other's approaches to civilization. They offered to share their own accumulated knowledge and technologies in exchange for insight into the collaborative model. The response from the Galactic Network was unanimous. Invitation to establish permanent communication links and begin the process of intergalactic cooperation. The vote wasn't even close. Beings who had experienced the benefits of collaboration were eager to extend those benefits to others. Dr. Vasquez found herself appointed as the primary coordinator for intergalactic relations, a role that would have been unimaginable when she first addressed the Galactic Council decades earlier. As she prepared for the first formal communication with representatives from other galaxies, Admiral Zethkar approached her with a question that had been troubling him. Dr. Vasquez, are you concerned about the scale of what we're attempting? Extending the collaborative model beyond our own galaxy seems incredibly ambitious, even by human standards. She smiled, the expression now carrying the wisdom of someone who had spent decades building bridges between incompatible forms of consciousness. Admiral, do you remember what you said when my species was first granted mercy by the Council? You said you hoped we would prove worthy of your trust. I do remember. And you exceeded our highest expectations. Well, I think the galaxy as a whole has proved worthy of the trust we've placed in each other. We've shown that beings who evolved under completely different conditions, with different forms of consciousness and different cultural values, can work together to achieve things none of us could accomplish alone. She paused, looking out at the bustling research station where beings from dozens of species collaborated on projects that would have seemed like magic to their ancestors. If we can do that within a single galaxy, why not between galaxies? The principles are the same: trust, transparency, shared benefit, and the understanding that cooperation creates more value than competition ever could. The first intergalactic exchange took place 6 months later. Representatives from 12 different galaxies gathered in a specially constructed space station position between galactic boundaries. The technologies required for the meeting have been developed collaboratively, with each galaxy contributing unique capabilities to solve the challenges of intergalactic travel and communication. Admiral Zethkar attended as both military advisor and historical witness. Watching beings from civilizations separated by millions of light years work together to solve shared problems, he reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. It had begun with a single vote in the Galactic Council, 24-23 in favor of showing mercy to an unknown species called humanity. That narrow decision had set in motion a transformation that now spanned multiple galaxies and included civilizations beyond counting. But the real transformation, he realized, hadn't been in humanity. It had been in everyone else. Humans had simply provided a catalyst for changes that every species had been capable of making all along. Dr. Vasquez joined him at the observation deck as the intergalactic delegates began their first collaborative session. Below them, beings whose forms of consciousness defied description worked alongside crystalline intelligences, energy entities, and biological species to address challenges that affected all their civilizations. Admiral, she said, I want to thank you for something. What's that, Dr. Vasquez? For being willing to change your mind. When you first recommended humanity's elimination, You were acting on the best information available and the wisdom of experience. But when new evidence emerged, when our collaboration produced unexpected benefits, you were willing to reconsider your position. Zethkar's mandibles clicked in what had become his version of a human smile. Dr. Vasquez, that's perhaps the most important thing your species taught us. That wisdom isn't about being right all the time. It's about being willing to be wrong when being wrong leads to something better. And what do you think we've learned from all of this? He considered the question carefully, watching as beings from different galaxies shared knowledge that would improve life for trillions of conscious entities across the universe. I think we've learned that mercy isn't really about forgiveness or second chances, he said finally. It's about recognizing potential, the potential for growth, for change, for becoming something better than we are. When the Council chose to spare humanity, we weren't just showing mercy to your species. We were showing faith in our own capacity to become worthy of the universe we inhabit. Dr. Vasquez nodded, her expression carrying the satisfaction of someone who had spent her life building something larger than herself. And that faith has been justified, hasn't it? Beyond our wildest expectations, Zethkar agreed. When we gave mercy to humanity, we thought we were taking a risk on an unknown species. What we actually did was invest in the future of consciousness itself. And the returns on that investment are still growing. As they watched the intergalactic assembly begin its work, neither could imagine the full scope of what their collaboration would eventually achieve. Civilizations sharing knowledge across cosmic distances, problems solved through cooperation between forms of consciousness that had never communicated before, and a universe where the competitive struggles that had defined existence for billions of years were gradually giving way to something unprecedented, true universal cooperation. The mercy shown to humanity had been returned 1,000-fold, not through gratitude or tribute, but through the demonstration that every act of trust, every choice of cooperation over competition, every decision to believe in the potential for growth rather than surrender to the certainty of conflict created ripples that expanded far beyond their original scope. In showing mercy to one small species on one insignificant planet, the galaxy had discovered its own capacity for transformation. And in sharing that discovery with the universe, they had begun to fulfill the true potential of conscious existence. Not just to survive and reproduce, but to grow, to learn, and to become something magnificent together.